Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sovereign Soul and welcome to Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250 and 251. Be sure you download the Zingo TV app on your mobile device. You can go ahead and find that in the respective app stores, iOS and Android. You can also download the Zingo TV app on your TV devices. That can be found in Google Chrome, Amazon Fire Sticks, Roku Sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Make sure you leave us a comment. Make sure you leave us an amazing rating because we need those things. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good. I want to give a quick shout out to our audience members. Thank you, thank you, thank you for popping on and joining us from your social media spaces. Please make sure that you share this. Those of you in the know, you know today's a day for sharing in your groups and your profiles and all the ways because we have something really special happening today. We're giving away some fabulous giveaways for those of you who share because today is a special day. Today is a day of Thanksgiving. It's a day that I've created. It's my day of Thanksgiving because it's one of my favorite times of year. So we are going to be showing up all day over on social media to give back, to raise the energy of gratitude and of love, and to bring awareness to one of my favorite organizations called Friends of a Feather. So we're going to be letting you know here today how you can join us, how you can participate, how you can get yourself entered into some of these amazing, amazing things that we'll be giving away. Feel free to DM us and ask us for more information. I'll be happy to give those to you. I'm so excited. We have a special guest today, Miss Renata. I'm so excited. You are someone who I was thinking about this in preparation for our show today. Do you realize how long we've known each other? Like, this is not, how do I want to say this? Like, we would both agree we've known each other for lifetimes, but do you realize how long in this lifetime we've known each other?
I think about 3 years. Is that correct?
Is. You yes. I was like, "Holy cow," because it feels like only yesterday that I was graced with your presence and wooed with your charm. Like, there's just so many beautiful things about you that everyone's gonna get to take, into account today. So, before we start, though, in this amazing conversation, we have questions from last week as well that play brilliantly into our conversation today. Before I do those, take a minute and introduce yourself to everyone watching.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays too. So I'm super excited.
I can't imagine why. I can't
Right?
imagine why. I don't know why.
Well, good morning. Hello to everyone watching today. My name is Renata from Nourish with Renata. I'm an intuitive nutrition coach. And what that means is I really help women figure out the foods that work best for their bodies. I believe in the society that we live in today, it's so easy to be influenced by all these external sources telling you what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, how you should work out, how you shouldn't work out. And that can be very confusing. And what we have inside of us is this internal wisdom, this intuition that we can really tap into to discover what actually helps us feel the best, feel vibrant, feel full of life, and helps all of our bodily functions work at their optimal. So that's really what I do. And one of the things I love to speak to women about specifically is, for instance, what we'll talk about today, which is going to be mindfulness around our eating habits. So this is going to be such a fun conversation.
It's gonna be so good. I've not prepped for well, I've not prepped you, I've prepped me. I've not prepped you for this. There are very few people that I usually do that to, and here's why. I love when energy comes together so in sync and so with so much fun and with so much joy. You know, you and I have so many conversations privately. We've done lots of different things together. You are my guru and my go-to for all in-person events because you bring such a depth of wisdom, of love for nutrition. It's just it I mean, I know it's all about the food, but it goes way beyond the food. It goes way beyond the food. And so I want to start with a question that came in around um the holidays. Okay, so how can we balance the enjoyment of food with the concept of moderation or self-discipline, most especially in our spiritual journey. I wanna give you an opportunity to think about that because I love you, and I know you don't like being on the spot, I love you. But I have so much to offer around that from my perspective. Being someone who's been on a weight loss journey for, well, all of 2023 and even beyond, I'd say over the past 3 years, it's been really trying to understand what my body wanted, right? Like, what does my body want? What makes it tick? What is it not like? What creates inflammation and things of that nature? But only this year have I really been putting into practice a lot of what I've learned about myself, right? So when we talk about these types of holidays where it's a lot of food emphasis, I think the enjoyment of food needs to take priority. I'm gonna put that out there. I'm gonna say that. I'm fine being corrected, but the enjoyment of the food needs to take priority because if we are walking into this super triggered in the way of nervousness, in the way of like negative discipline, I think there's good discipline. I wanna talk about that, but if we walk into this full of nerves and full of emotions about this, then you're not just digesting food, you're also digesting lower vibration energy, which isn't gonna support your having the most enjoyment with your friends, with your family, with your food. I think that the concept of moderation and discipline society-wise, perhaps even in your family history, that is something that can be triggering for a lot of people. And so for me, taking it back to the conversation we had on our last episode around authenticity, authenticity is us knowing who we are at our core from a perspective that's only ours, not what a book tells us, what our parents tell us, what our teachers tell us, what all the other health gurus tell us. It's our connection to our inner being, what it is expressing through us, and what we, or how we, I should say, connect to the body temple. Because moderation and discipline come from that space of, I love me. I love me. And so I will feed me food wise and energy wise what's best for me and what's most authentic to my way of showing up in the world and living. So I think that's my contribution to that beautiful question. We want to shout out for Hannah for sending that in. Um, what's your take on that, Renata?
So I completely agree with you. My first tenet in my nutrition coaching business is always to look at food as the ultimate form of self-care. So
Mhm.
when we look at food in that way, it really becomes completely different to what you might have been brought up looking at food like. I do believe a lot of us grow up in families where we're forced to make sure we eat everything on the table or everything on our plates, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or we're like kind of peer pressured to eat certain things or not eat certain things. And that becomes a very external viewpoint when it comes to how you look at food and also how you look at your body. So I
Mm,
always want to bring people back to, hey, if I can look at food as a form of self-care, and for me, it's the ultimate form of self-care because we can do it multiple times a day. How
mhm,
would that shift how I look at my food choices or my drink choices? How would that shift how I pay attention to my hunger and my fullness cues? That's really the first step when we start talking about, excuse me, when we start talking about how we balance, so to speak, this Thanksgiving holiday where there is an abundance of food with this
mhm,
idea of moderation. So that would be the first thing I would say. Really, really important and perhaps quite foreign to many people because it's not something that we're used to doing.
mhm. Yes, I love this. I love this. So one of my notes here is to honor the body, what it
Mm,
needs, but why it needs it, and not to deprive ourselves.
yes.
That's something that I learned from you. It literally I remember having a conversation, I don't remember exactly how it started, forgive me, but I remember you telling me you're not listening to your body's cues. And I was like, "Girl, what are you talking about? Like, what? I know when I'm hungry, I know when I'm not. I know when I'm thirsty, I know when I'm not." Right? And you're like, "When's the last time you ate today?" And at that point in my life, I was 4 years into business, and at that point as well, divorced with the kids. So I had the house, I had the home. This was right around the COVID era as well, because I had my own office outside of my home. And when you and I connected and you told me that, I was just like, if you ignore your body long enough, the cues go away, you said. And I was like, oh my God. Yes. You get so wrapped up in stressors that sometimes you forget to listen to the body. It's the last thing we want to pay attention to when we're in high pressure situations, when we have so much asked of us and we want to show up and give to the world, make sure everybody else is taken care of. And then it's like, oh, yeah, at that point, our calls were in the afternoon. I actually haven't eaten yet today. And you're like, girl, what's your deal? What are you talking about? Like now? But how so I want you to riff on that for a little while, because I think that this is gonna hit a lot of people. How do you know Oh, there's many questions, and you can start wherever, by the way. I wanna know what a cue is, how you know it's a cue. I wanna know the idea of your body, like, no longer giving you the cues, right? That you're hungry or that you're full or that you're thirsty or not. Riff on that for me for a moment.
Okay, yes, ma'am. So this is a really interesting concept that many people might not have heard before, and I mean, this is just one of the ideas that you brought up. The idea of the difference between physical hunger and perhaps mental or emotional hunger. So let's talk about that. Okay. So
Okay.
physical hunger makes sense, right? It's like I haven't eaten all day, I've been working out, I've used up a lot of energy, and as a result, my body is probably giving me cues like tummy rumbling. It's probably giving me cues like I'm feeling my energy levels drop because my blood sugar level is dropping. These are all really good signs that the body, the physical body, needs additional nourishment. Okay. Now, let's contrast this with, say, it's a really stressful time. Okay. So maybe you are around a lot of family right now and it's really stressful. And one of the ways that you might historically deal with that stress is eating like a bag of chips. Okay. We all love chips, they taste delicious. I'm not demonizing chips. Okay.
You can't just have
And
one. It's not a
you can't
chip.
just have one. Yeah.
It's not a
It's
chip. Chip.
multiple. Yeah.
It's like coffee. You can't just have one
Some would,
coffee. Yeah.
yeah, some,
Come
I
on.
mean, maybe. Yeah, maybe. We'll talk about that too, I think. But the idea here is like you might have a food that you lean on when you're in really stressful situations. And you might not even notice that it's not the physical body that's saying you're hungry. It's really a response to stress. It's how
Mm,
you're managing all of the stress that you're experiencing, whether it is from family being around or whether it is from, a really stressful work project going on. So I want to make this distinction between, is it my physical body that's telling me I'm hungry, or is it a response to something else that's going on mentally or emotionally? You can
yes. Now
also say,
can
go
I
ahead.
pause for just a second? Because there
Yeah.
is a brilliant mind that I'm connected to who said to me once, "Stress doesn't always have to be negative."
Mm,
Stress is also when you're in, like stress is good stuff too. You feel great, you're moving, you're in action, you're surrounded by your friends, you're surrounded by your family, you've got this agenda, for Thanksgiving and all the things you've gotta prep and Black Friday and all the things you wanna go and do. So I remember when you said, "Jackie, just because life's amazing and you're so busy, you're still stressed. There's good stress, that's stress, there's bad stress, that's stress, there's yay stress, that's stress, all of it's stress. Stress is still stress. So that's another thing to be aware of, is that even though you're like, "I'm actually not stressed. I'm loving my life. I'm loving having my family around. I'm loving celebrating the holidays." That stress is still stress on the body, right?
mm,
And that
yes.
stress still makes us want to show up and participate, right?
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. So I love that you brought that up because just like you mentioned, there's so many times when we think we're not stressed, And really, the body holds on to so much stress, we just don't notice it. And so we tend to accumulate more and more stress on our proverbial plates. And as a result, what happens? The body is then going to kick back really in high gear and tell you, no, like you'll either have chronic fatigue, or like me, you might get shingles. Like there's going to be a big outburst that's going to force your body to slow down and find ways to relieve that stress. So
Mhm.
really, really important there to consider. And then the other thing that I would say, because you asked the question about, what are my hunger and fullness cues? This is a really important one, especially during this holiday season, because what do we normally do? We have food that's around us, it's all over the place, and we're like, well, since it's here, I'll just keep eating, right? We also might be thinking, this is when I only get this kind of food. Like I only get pecan pie at this time of year.
That was
Right?
my thought in the shower. I'm thinking about you. Stop calling me out. Oh, that was literally my thought this morning. I'm not gonna stress this. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna enjoy it all. Right? This is the only time
Yeah.
of year. This is gonna be my cheat day. Girl,
And
stop.
no, so I'm not saying any of these foods are quote unquote bad. What I'm really saying is sometimes we look at particular foods that might be seasonal or traditional, and we think it's only this time of year that I can have them. And as a result, we tend to overindulge in those foods. Really,
Mhm.
you don't have to, because honestly, if you wanted pecan pie in April, you could totally get one or buy one or make one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, first of all, I really want to point that out. Oh, sorry, Kayla. She's also here in the chat saying, stop calling me out. Sorry, guys. Sorry. But it's this idea, number one, that you can always get any of these foods. It's not just necessarily at this time of year. If you really wanted, you could get them at other times of year too. So I
Mhm.
think that helps to take the pressure off of feeling like the lack or the scarcity of never being able to have this food again. So
Mhm.
that's part of it. Now, the second part of it is understanding what fullness feels like. And so,
Mhm.
usually at Thanksgiving, fullness feels like completely overstuffed. Like you're now the turkey that's been stuffed too much, And so we often think that that's what fullness feels like. That's actually not fullness, that's overfull. So if we look at a scale of 1 to 10, one being absolutely ravenous, starving, haven't eaten all day, 10 being that feeling after Thanksgiving dinner where you have to like unbutton your pants and you have to like lie back because you're really, really full. That's
You don't
10.
you don't just choose yoga pants and avoid all that? Like, you're doing something wrong here, people.
Right. I mean, we'll talk about pants another time, I think. So really what we want to do is look on this 1 to 10 scale of around that 7 to 8 range. And it does take some practice because you might really be used to ignoring that fullness cue and going to 10 every time. So
Yeah.
it's about playing in this realm of, okay, what is comfortably full? What is that level of fullness where I feel like I'm good? Like, sure, I could eat another plate or get another piece of pie, for instance, but I know that will take me over into that really stuffed feeling that will leave me feeling quite lethargic or fatigued or like I need to take a nap. So
Mhm.
that is how we start to differentiate between overfull and a comfortable fullness.
Yes, I love this. I love this so much. And, I hear you in my mind, not to deprive. I think that
Yes.
that's another aspect of, like, the mental fortitude, right? Like, that we're wanting to forge is that I don't have to deprive myself. Is there a trick of the trade that you would offer us that we might be able to do in advance of enjoying our Thanksgiving or our festive holiday um, banquets? Like, what did you say? The plethora of food that's before us. What are some of the things that we might be able to do in advance of that that can support our bodies?
Yes. So this is a great question, and I'll offer you three things. Okay. So, yeah, I know we're all about abundance here. Number
Yes.
one is make sure you're well hydrated.
Mhm.
So, usually this time, lots of us get up early to start cooking. And as a result, what do? We just drink more coffee, or we just ignore that we're thirsty and we could just keep pushing through, pushing through. I really want to invite you into making sure you're drinking plenty of water. Sometimes when we're dehydrated, we actually think we're hungrier than we really are. And so I really want to make sure you're well hydrated. It's also going to do wonders for your digestive system, for your brain. It's basically going to help all of your organs work better when you're well hydrated. So make sure to start your day off with a nice glass of water. Perhaps before you sit down to eat your meals, drink another glass of water. That's just really to help you to make sure that everything in your body is working really well. And so we're not confusing any of the cues your body might be giving you. So that's tip number one. Any questions on that? Because I know you love water, Jackie.
It's right here.
Look at that. So good.
I'm surprised you didn't call me out. Like, yes, here. It's right here.
She's been well trained, folks. Yeah.
Well, beaten, even one would say.
I mean, not. I wouldn't say that. I think just gently encouraged. You know?
Yes, of course, gently.
Okay, let's move on to tip number 2, and that is how you make your plate. Okay, so when you come and you sit down, number one, I have to say huge kudos to Beverly. She says she loves water. Thank you. You're my people.
Yes.
So number 2, when you make your plate, really think about how you're dividing up your plate. So typically what I want to make sure is I always have a good source of protein on my plate. So whether it's the turkey or the ham, or whether it's some form of vegan or vegetarian protein options such as beans and legumes, I really want to make sure I have at least a palm-sized portion on my plate. If you are someone that's very active, you might have at least 1 or 2 of these. It also depends if you're male or female. For female, it's typically 1 palm. Male, it's typically 2. And so we want to make sure we have protein. Protein is the building block of all of our cells. It helps us to feel fuller for longer. It also helps to regulate your blood sugar levels. So make sure you've got protein on your plate. It's also very grounding, really great for the body. Now, the other thing I want to make sure of is ideally, we want to have about half of our plate. So if this is our plate, about half of our plate of vegetables. Now, this might be kind of weird because usually on Thanksgiving meals, it's a lot about like potatoes or cornbread casserole, that kind of thing. But I really want to make sure, like, what are some other forms of veggies that you could have, like maybe a broccoli salad or some spinach or a great salad, and really filling up half of that plate with lots of veggies. They're full of fiber. Fiber is so great for your gut health, for your digestive system. It once again helps you to feel full, which is really awesome. And it also has lots of micronutrients, which are your vitamins and your minerals. So once again, not to say you can't have the mashed potatoes or the cornbread or anything like that. It's just thinking about, okay, how can I make sure I have plenty of my veg? I have my protein, and then whatever is left on the plate can be for some of the other things that you might have at Thanksgiving.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Listen, we want to walk in from a space of no. We want to have this be something that we really do give ourselves permission to think about in advance, because
Yes.
think that we can really find ourselves out of alignment when we don't prep in advance, when we feel like we got thrown into it, when we, allow ourselves and our energy to be influenced by the moment, the people, and the amazing food that sits there before us, right? It can be such a bully sometimes. So it's
Yeah.
really important for us to give this is why I had to have this conversation with you now. It's not just about being aware, but it's also about becoming like embracing all of what this has the potential to offer us. Feeling more empowered that I'm making these choices. I've thought this ahead. I know for me, and I'm sure for you as well, and many of the audience members, if you're feeling this, if this is true for you, give me some sort of 1 or 2 or emoji in the comments. Does your family have a traditional layout? Like, I can tell you right now what will be on Loren's table this year. We're actually going to go down to Loren's house. The mess ain't going to be at my place, and I ain't doing them dishes. Like,
Thanks,
I'm
Lauren.
yeah, right? Like, shout out to Loren. Woo, we're going to Virginia. But I know what's going to be on the table because it's a tradition every year to have these items. So we have the benefit right now of being able to think ahead and know what it is that we are going to be sitting at the table to enjoy. And like you're saying, having these portions and this know of what you should be consuming is going to be such an empowered state of showing up for yourself, right?
100%. Yes.
One of the other things that I would love that I learned from you, that I still learn from you, I send those random texts like, "Hey, I don't have this to put in my recipe. What can I substitute?" To pull it off. But I think that this is really important because are there some tricks of the trade? Are there some, like, instead of putting sugar in something, opt for something like this. Instead of using butter for this, opt for something like this. Because you've got some pretty big players when it comes to a festivity like this. What would be some of the healthier choices that people might consider when it comes to making those recipes?
Right. Great question. So, number one, in terms of butter, I mean, who doesn't love butter? It's delicious. It helps everything taste good. And there's some really great forms of plant-based butter nowadays that are available. So you can always swap out a portion or all of the butter that you might be using in a recipe for plant-based. That's actually what I typically do. You
Mhm.
could also use something like coconut oil. Now, it does have more of a coconutty flavor. So if you like that, awesome. And that is another great substitute for traditional butter. The
Mm,
other thing that I would say in terms of sugar, because there's so much sugar in typical Thanksgiving foods, I like to either reduce the amount of sugar or swap it out for something called monk fruit sweetener. So,
mm,
monk fruit sweetener is literally from a fruit called monk fruit. And it's called that because monks basically found it in a subtropical region of China. What's really awesome about monk fruit is it actually helps to stabilize your blood sugar levels. So, that's really great for people who might be pre diabetic or diabetic. And so then they can really help themselves by enjoying some of those sweet treats that they might not normally have. And they know it's not going to spike their blood sugar. So those would be the two things I would recommend. And honestly, the third one would be look for more ways to add color. So is it like, usually it's like lots of browns. So we have the turkey, we have the ham, we might
mhm.
have or beige is another really good one, mashed potatoes, right? The gravy, how can I add more color? And that's usually in the form of vegetables. So it might be adding more veg to your stuffing. It might be having different vegetable options as sides for your Thanksgiving meals. That's really going to help to amp up the nutritional benefit of this particular meal.
I love it. Oh my God. Now I am a true believer in monk fruit. That's one of the first things I swapped out when I was connecting with you. And it really doesn't taste any different. It really does not taste any different. And it is a great go-to when you're substituting sugar. I love so much what you shared. Literally, my brain is going, "Oh my God, she's right." Not that I ever think you're wrong, but like in this moment, I'm like, "Holy crap, like you're so on all of the different, like adding different colors because of what pretty much, yeah, the turkey's, yeah, that's the color potatoes. Holy cow, with gravy too. Like, yes. How can we add more of that?" Now, because of what we do and how we want to show up and support others in the world, Thanksgiving would really, really bring in a heart chakra space, right? So, heart chakra being where we feel the energy of love, where we express our connection to that energy of love to the world. And Thanksgiving is a beautiful time for us to be able to share that for self, first, foremost, and most importantly, but also to the loved ones that we're sharing that space with. Being able to support yourself intuitively with staying in that presence of that energy, showing up and being able to indulge in those greens, right, are going to be super, super helpful for you maintaining your energy levels while you are seated at your table, enjoying all of your friends and family, coming in connection, especially if you're someone that has multiple tables to visit that day. I remember those days, like, gotta go here, you gotta go there. We want to make sure. So, what are some of your favorite heart centered recipes that or go-tos when it comes to the veg for people to maybe add this year to their new Thanksgiving traditions?
I love this. So yes, just like you said, sometimes with Thanksgiving, it can feel so stressful that we actually tune out of that heart space. And so we love using food as that way to support the heart chakra, for instance, in this particular case. So anything green is really beautiful, really powerful for activating and supporting the energy of the heart chakra. So one of my favorites is actually a really delicious creamed spinach that's made with, it's vegan. So there's no dairy in it, which is great for people that might have a lactose intolerance. So this
Mm.
is really simple, just tons and tons of sauteed spinach, a little bit of onion and garlic. You make up a roux, which is basically your plant-based butter and a little bit of flour of choice. Add in your plant-based milk to create a creamy sauce. You can also add nutritional yeast, which gives it like a really cheesy flavor. Once again, completely vegan. Then you mix them both together. Yes, Beverly, we are so aligned. She says she loves spinach as well.
She
So
loves
you just
water and spinach. She's your
water
favorite.
and spinach. She is. So then you just mix those two things together. You can bake it in the oven to get that nice, like golden brown top. Honestly, one of the most delicious veggie options. You're getting tons of spinach, you're getting the onion and garlic in there, and then you're also getting some healthy fats from your plant based butter and whichever non dairy milk that you're choosing to use. So that's a really, really easy one. The other one that I love, the whole family loves it as well, is like I mentioned before, a broccoli salad. Now,
Mm.
this might sound really crazy because there's usually not a lot of like green salads on the table for Thanksgiving. It's simply chopped up broccoli florets, some sliced up very finely julienned carrots, and then I make a really simple dressing. Oh, actually, sorry, I chop up apples, put in there. Apples is one of the greatest like fall fruits. So you want to put a little bit of sweetness and crunch in there too. And then the dressing is really simple. It's basically a creamy lemon dressing with a little bit of monk fruit sweetener in there, a little bit of garlic and Dijon to give it that savory flavor. Toss it all together. You're going to top it with some pecans and a little bit of dried cranberries, perfect for the fall. That is literally one of my family's favorite salads. And even my husband and my father in law love that salad. So that's when you know it's good.
It is so good. I can attest to it too because it was in Sedona when we had our retreat in Arizona this past year. All of the attendees and myself got to enjoy that amazing salad. It is so good, and you're definitely going to want to add that. Go back to the replay, people, so you can write this stuff down. How are you taking notes, friends? Gosh. Um, okay, so we'll get real.
Okay.
We've had our feast. We've enjoyed our family. And now it's like, what do I do? What do I do with all of the energy I have sucked in? What do I do to move myself into this harmony and sync digestive situation now? Like, what can we do after we've enjoyed our time, exercise wise, to really
Mm.
support our body? Because this is something, knowing you as well as I do and having you in my space for as long as I've had you in my space, I know that this is also something that you support people with. It isn't just intuitive eating. It's not just how to create the most fantastic meals. Shout out to your second cookbook, girl. But it's also like being able to show up and move the body in a beautiful, gentle way to support all of what you're implementing. So, what are some of your favorite things to implement exercise wise? My guides are like before and during and after our Thanksgiving experience. Because this too, just a side note, this keeps our mind focused. It keeps us focused on the goal at hand, which isn't to overconsume both food and family, and to make sure that we are prioritizing ourselves. What are some
Yeah.
of the things that you could be doing?
Yes. So this is such an important question because I do feel like at this time of year, especially for us as women, just like you mentioned before, we're giving, giving, giving to everyone else and we're forgetting about ourselves. So for me, sometimes movement is that way to give back to me. So in
Mm.
the mornings, some things that I really love to do are to do some form of movement, whether it's yoga or Pilates or going for a walk outside. It's really my time to tune back into myself, to give me that space and time to really get centered before anything happens for the rest of the day. And so for me, I love a good walk outside, especially right now in the fall. The leaves are changing, you have that crispy like underfoot sound when you're walking through the leaves. I love that. I also really love yoga because it's a nice, gentle practice. And when we're talking about tuning into the body, there's nothing better. We're connecting breath with movement. And that's
Mm,
one of the most powerful ways in terms of movement itself that you can do that. You can do it in the comfort of your own home, or you could find a local gym or yoga studio that offers it too. So for me, that would be how I would really fill my proverbial cup back up
mhm.
before anything happens.
Yeah.
And then during the day, get up and get moving. So I know it's so easy to be just standing in the kitchen, going from like the fridge to the sink to the oven.
It doesn't count?
No, I mean, yes, of course, everything counts. And also, like, how can you move around the house more? Perhaps, really like play with the kids a little bit during the day. And this really leads me into what you can do after the meal. Typically, we just sit down and watch TV, like a movie or football or something like that. And I really want to make sure that we spend at least 10 minutes in movement after we eat. There's been
Mm,
some amazing studies that have shown that when we get into movement after we consume, it really helps us to manage our blood sugar levels. So instead of feeling like a really high peak and then a really big drop off, we actually start using that energy we put into our bodies. So whether it is going for a walk outside or playing catch with the kids or just like getting on the floor with them and like, when they ride on your back and play horsey, something like that, any form of movement for at least 10 minutes is going to be really awesome for helping to manage not just your blood sugar levels, but also getting in touch with everyone that's in the room, especially the little ones, because it
mm,
can be so easy to just sit down on the couch and then just disconnect. And really,
mm.
what we want to do during Thanksgiving is make sure we have beautiful connections with everyone that we're surrounded by.
Yes, I am loving this. Friends, I see all of you online. Are you loving this conversation? I want you to ask whatever questions you might have regarding nutrition, regarding intuitive eating, regarding movement. Ask those questions so that we can, really personalize this more for you. Um, I think one of the things that I would like to offer as well when it comes to taking it all in, you've gotten to that state where you're sitting at the table and, days worth of cooking. Loren's been saying, I've been doing this for days. Days worth of cooking. It's all like it's right before you. You've spent the morning or the days before baking and prepping and getting it all together. You've counted that list multiple times, stressed out about making sure you got things like French onions, Loren said. Like you've gotten to that point where now we get to sit and we get to enjoy. And many people come together around that table and they give thanks, whether that's, a prayer or whether that's just a statement of gratitude, whether you go around the table and ask everybody to share what they're grateful for. There is this moment that I feel can be extremely beneficial to us to drop into our heart spaces before you even consume what's going on at the table or within the conversations that will be had around the table. So drop into your heart space and to really be present for that moment. That's going to support you with what food you're intaking, how much you're intaking. Excuse me. A deep breath as well is really going to support you with becoming mindful in that moment. A digestive tract, and I want you to speak on this because, again, I love you so much for this. Your digestive tract, right, responds to your presence. We don't want our body to just consume and to absorb, right? We don't want to just consume, absorb. We want to be very mindful about how we are absorbing. And there's been science studies, there's been classroom artwork done, there's science projects done where when you give thanks, something is processed completely different. When you speak words of positivity, it's completely different. The plant that grew in the classroom grew differently with the positive words versus not at all with the negative words. And I remember you telling me the best way that you could bless the body internally, to give it what it needs internally, is to bless something. We were talking particularly about water and taking the water bottle and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, or I'm so grateful for this hydration, or through this hydration, I'm, quenching my soul and things like that. Like being able to be present for that moment, being able to have a state of gratitude before you partake is really going to support your body with the way that it digests what you're about to do. You get to choose. That's your personal power. You get to choose if you're just going to do it because you're starving, right? If you're going to do it because you are, numbing or completely checked out, or you get to choose if you're going to be present for this moment. You're going to take in everything that accumulated to get you to this moment. You're going to be grateful for this state, for this presence, for this food. And as you digest, it's going to have a completely different effect on the body. What would you add, if anything, to that?
Well, you make such an amazing point. And what I really want to emphasize about everything that you explained is what we're doing is we're getting out of that fight or flight mode, that stressed out body nervous system response, and we're getting into the rest and digest nervous system state. So let me explain. You're cooking all day for Thanksgiving. You're like trying to get everything onto the table. Everything has to be hot. Like, there's this perfectly timed symphony that's happening that is making sure everything's hot when it gets to the table, right? You're
Mom,
trying.
are you watching? Mom, she's
Yeah.
talking. Mom, where's my mother? Where's my mother? Get my mother on the phone.
Sorry,
Yes,
mom.
he's
Yeah.
not hot. The potatoes aren't hot. Put the top on it. Yes, no, this is you're so right. So right. There's this conscious awareness about everything being hot when it hits the table.
Right. And then you're stressed out because you probably have 5 people coming into the kitchen trying to like look over your shoulder and see like, is everything ready? I'm getting hungry. Someone's probably like not set the table yet. And so you're yelling at them. There's all these stressors, right? And then you get to the table and you're like, everyone eat before it gets cold, right?
Hurry
And so
up.
what's happening? Right. What's happening with the nervous system? You're still in that state of stress. And when the body is stressed out, we're in that fight or flight mode, which you've probably heard of before. What's happening inside the body is that the blood flow is moving away from the digestive system. So it's going to your hands, your feet, in case you like literally need to punch or run. Like you think your body needs to have these kinds of responses because of these stressors that are coming at you on this particular day. And so as a result, your internal organs, and particularly your digestive system, doesn't have the blood flow in it to be able to really digest the food well, to absorb all of the nutrients from that food because the blood flow has been pulled away from it. And so when we pause, when we set an intention for the food, when we give thanks, when we perhaps go around the table, like you mentioned, and really say something we're grateful for, we're allowing ourselves to take a breath. We're allowing ourselves to get out of that fight or flight mode and get back into that rest and digest nervous system state, which means that the blood flow comes back into the gut, comes back into the digestive system, which means we actually improve how we digest our food because more blood is there. And so that's a really important tool, or really the science behind the tool to understand. And you can activate this in lots of different ways. Maybe it is just sitting down at the table and everyone takes a few deep breaths. Or you do like talk a little bit, say a prayer, say an intention before you eat your food that particular meal. It's really a lovely practice to get into. And it's also important to have that understanding behind the scenes so that you know why it's so important to your health and well-being.
Yes, 100%. Oh, I love this. I'm hoping if there's anything you take away from today's episode, it's that right there. You have to be in a state of rest and appreciation for your food to make the biggest and best impact on your experience, on your body. One of the things Kayla brought up that's really, really good, I want to riff on this with you for a moment, is she says the best practice when you are eating and there's alcohol so you don't overeat. So, alcohol, whoa, this can be, we're going to, there's so many places we could go with this. But when it comes particularly to our conversation, talk to us about what you know alcohol to be, right? And how it can play a role, not in a helpful way, to what intentions you've created for yourself for the day in advance.
Mm. Alcohol is really interesting. It's actually not something that I partake in, and I haven't drunk alcohol for like 7 years now. That's my own personal preference.
Yes.
When I did research into it, I found that alcohol consumption, especially in large quantities, can potentially kill off up to 50% of your good gut bacteria. And so
Mm,
we work really hard to improve our gut health by making sure we're eating lots of different fiber-rich foods. But then if a few drinks is going to affect that, and I'm sure that many people have felt this when you've drunk quite a bit and then the next day your stomach is really upset, or you have loose stool, or it takes you so long to recover. This is a
mhm,
really great indication that alcohol might not be the best friend, let's say, for your gut and your health.
yeah.
So, when it comes to alcohol itself, there's a few things that I would recommend. Number one, if you know that it's a trigger for you, try to replace it with something else that feels in the same vein as a fun drink. So, I love a good mocktail. For me, that's always like a super fun way to feel like you're indulging, but perhaps it's just, a squeeze of lime and some mint in some sparkling water. It feels and it might look like an alcoholic beverage, but it's really not. And you know that you're hydrating your body too. So that would be the first thing I would say. Secondly, if you do want to partake in some alcohol during this holiday season, think about how you can optimize it during the day. It's
Mm,
really easy, I think, for us to start off the day with like mimosas and then like you keep drinking throughout the day. And at the end of the day, you feel totally wiped and drunk. And as a result, you overeat, right? So
mhm,
perhaps it's more so I'm going to make sure I have my alcohol around a meal as opposed to having it on an empty stomach.
mm,
Why is that important? Well, we know that, when you drink alcohol, it's a liquid form of a carbohydrate going into your bloodstream. And so it's going to affect you a lot, especially when you're not eating a food with it. So if you
yes.
can eat a meal and then you sip on your alcoholic beverage, it's going to have less of an impact on your blood sugar level, which is
Mm,
sometimes really helpful to know so that you can understand, hey, I actually don't feel like I'm going from completely fine to a little bit tipsy in one drink. So look at how you can optimize when you're having your alcohol around meal times.
yes, so good, so good. That's huge perspective, and I'm hoping you all took notes on that. One of the things that I wanna suggest as well, if you are a, as they call, social drinker, in social situations, this is when you tend to lean towards the alcohol. I would be tuning into myself prior to this. You're not just gonna forecast what you're gonna have from your table. You're not just gonna plan out how that day is gonna go for you and set those intentions that I'm only gonna participate in this and this and this and this and this. I'm gonna protect my energy. And I'm going to make sure that, I'm not having conversations with regards to the political conversation or the religious conversation or the things that are happening. But this might be another thing for you to really sit with and consider in advance of. Am I going to participate in it? If I am, why am I? Many people use this as a numbing out. We don't want to numb out because we really truly want to be present. So have a really clear idea of why this is something that you're introducing at for yourself, not at your party, but for yourself. We've got a few minutes left, and I want to ask you to share with us some ways that we can connect with you and stay connected with you. I know you, I know your heart. I know there's ways that people can participate, perhaps with something that you might be offering right now. Did you come with a free gift? Can I put you on the spot for a free gift? Do you have something you can offer us that's really going to support us?
Yes. So, number one, thank you so much for having me because this has been such an incredible conversation. And I feel so grateful that you invited me on. So, thank you. You're the best.
I know.
Now, in terms of a gift, I have a ton of recipes on my website, which is nourishwithrenata.com. You can also search for the term Thanksgiving, and I have a ton of different healthy recipe options on there, such as mashed sweet potato and butternut squash, a really great alternative to mashed potato, and as well as some vegan cornbread muffins. They're delicious and super easy to make too. So go ahead and head over to my website, nourishwithrenata.com, to get some easy and delicious, not to mention healthy recipes.
Yes, it's so good, and I'm sure they can find you also over on Instagram at Nourish with Renata. It's gonna be another great place for you to get into the know of all the things that she offers, all the things that she's doing, and all of the ways that you can participate with some amazing recipes. So good. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here with us today. We really appreciate your presence, all your knowledge, all your awesomeness. Ah, it's so good. It's so good. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited to have had you with me. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. So be sure to go over and check out spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. You got to love it. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Until next week, friends, I'll see you soon. Bye.